Hello, The Surge is a third-person Souls-like action-adventure game developed by Deck13 and published by Focus Home Interactive. Wait, is it Deck 13 or Deck 1-3? Whatever. After working with CI Games on Lords of the Fallen, Deck13 split up to make a spiritual successor to the game. I don't know why they split up, so don't expect the history lesson here. But I've played this in the past and it's basically a sci-fi Dark Souls with faster combat, so in a way this is an alternative to Bloodborne rather than Dark Souls. Back then I played like 10 hours of it and I just kinda slipped away and never finished it until a bit prior to this review. I remember liking it back then, but were annoyed by some issues. Okay, that sounds like every game I've ever played, so that ain't gonna help, so let's get into The Surge. The graphics are good. It looks a bit jaggy though, even with anti-aliasing on. I had to turn up the resolution scale to make the game look smoother. The environments are super detailed with a lot of environmental storytelling. Looks pretty good for a grim, nasty version of Earth. It has very high contrast as well. The shadows look dark, maybe a bit too dark, but that's just me. The level design is fine. It's separated into multiple areas with one rest point in each, and you have to explore the area and find shortcuts back to rest. There's not a whole lot of variety in these areas though. It's mostly just industrial areas, so get used to looking at pipes and machinery. There's also a lot of narrow-ass claustrophobic areas that make combat difficult to deal with and navigation confusing as hell. Those maintenance tunnels that you have to go through for shortcuts is one of the worst things in this game. It's so dark even with gear lights on, and if you don't keep a mental note of where you are and remember the layout, or if you lose your sense of direction after fighting an enemy, you're back to square one. This made me try to rush through these sections as much as I can without exploring and getting all the items, which is like half the fun of the game. Overall, game looks good, but something's bad. The gameplay is simple. Kill things, cut enemies' limbs off for new armor and weapons, explore the map to find nice loot and shortcuts, go back to the med bay to rest and upgrade shit, fight a boss at the end, rinse and repeat. The combat is a more aggressive version of the one from Lords of the Fallen. The game has a power meter which can be used to attack with your drone, and most importantly, cut off limbs. To charge the meter you have to keep hitting enemies and it goes down over time, so yeah, be aggressive if you want to get the good shit. I like the combat for the most part. Attacking the yellow armor parts can take a while to kill an enemy, so attack the blue unarmored parts to kill faster when you don't want to get any parts. Most enemies are fair since they have the same movesets as the players, so they telegraph their attacks well and you can attack them accordingly. The ones that don't telegraph their attacks well are robotic ones. Those robot dogs, the big thick torch boys, the floaty things, and this one that's not a robot but the purple levitating fucks and gaping black holes. You have to take your time with these, and they'll keep ruining your anus until you remember their patterns fully. Their attacks are just so sudden, leaving you no time to react. Because of them, I started fighting like an absolute pussy halfway through the game instead of recognizing patterns and dodging shit. Just dash attack, maybe get a second hit in, and then dash back. So that got repetitive quick, but man, slicing limbs off and collecting parts is addicting as hell, and it's easily one of the best parts in the game. You! There's no longer stats or attributes that you can make different builds with like in Lords of the Fallen. Instead, there's an overall power level that you can increase to equip more implants, heavier armor, unlock loot boxes, not that kind, around the map, and open passageways by overloading these panels with big numbers on them. I think this is a good change since it fits the sci-fi setting more with implants and all that. Even though you can't make builds stat-wise, you can still do it with the many different types of armor, weapons, and implants. The bosses are okay. They don't take as long to kill this time around, but they're also more difficult, which is great. They don't overstay their welcome like in Lords of the Fallen. There are only 5 bosses in the base game, which I wouldn't mind if they're interesting, but not all of them are. The most interesting one is this spider ball thing that controls this big platform with big claws and torches, but it's also the most annoying one. There's a lot to keep track of. In the first phase, it's got these 2 meaty claws that crush and swipe at you. Then you got these fucking torches that fuck you up within seconds unless you keep dodging. All the shit happens while the spider ball in the back shoots a giant laser at you. It's just a mess. Other than that, there's not much going on. You fight a big robot, a flying big robot, a guy with a respawning version of the robot before, and a big purple thing. They each got their own gimmicks and are challenging enough to fight. Not epic as fuck, but okay. The story is simple, but like Lords of the Fallen, it's told in the most unorganized way possible. The Earth is fucked and so is the atmosphere. Creo, a tech company, decides to launch something called Project Resolve into the atmosphere to restore it. But the thing is, it's taken too long, so they created a cheaper and faster alternative called Utopia instead that uses a technology called nanites. Utopia sounds like a good alternative until it's revealed that it kills almost all living beings on Earth. You play as Warren, a new employee coming in for his first day of work but ends up getting screwed instead. You get thrown into a junkyard to find killer drones and crazy people with big weapons and armor. Now it's up to you to find out what happened. While the story sounds interesting, uncovering the truth is kinda cryptic. If you just play the story and talk to NPCs, you'll get some pieces of the puzzle and you can kinda figure it out, but you have to make a lot of assumptions. A lot of the details are given to the player in audio logs and the various displays found around the workplace. The audio logs and displays are often found in places with enemies, so if you want to know more about what's happening, you have to kill everything around you first, then stand and listen. If I pick up an audio log and get distracted by an enemy while listening, I can just go to the menu and replay it, but most of the time I forget about them from being interrupted. It kind of ruins the pacing a bit too when you just want to get to the next area but you want to learn the story, so you just stand there for like a minute or two to listen. When you're busy surviving, everything else gets thrown out the window. I wouldn't have a problem with this if it's something extra like for world building, but the fact that details that are integral to understanding the story fully are in these, I'm just not a fan of. All that shit I said about Project Resolve and Utopia I got from the NPCs along with some assumptions. I was still confused about what was happening after playing the game, so I had to look up the rest on the game's wiki page to confirm it. Bottom line, leave the important stuff in the story where it can't be missed, and the rest in audio logs. The Surge is an okay experience. The combat is satisfying with its dismemberment system for armor and weapons. The bosses are fine with one exception. The level design is a bit too claustrophobic with very little variety and that made navigation confusing at times. The story, while it's interesting, was poorly told and had to rely a lot on audio logs and similar elements. If you're here to fuck shit up, collect and upgrade armor and weapons, and look cool as fuck, you come to the right place. If you're here for anything other than those things, there are better games out there. Also that song, you know the one, is now stuck in my head forever. I am now a bird stuck in a cage. Okay, that's all for now. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Did you know that 99.69696969% of viewers aren't subscribers to this channel? Like, what the heck? Jack me off more often, damn. Okay, bye.